Hi, YouTube. Haven't been on here a while because real life happens, and so, this is gonna be a new series of videos that I kind of just came up in 5 a.m. or something, and I just watched Tomorrowland, the newly came out movie by Brad Bird, the director, and Damon Lindelof, and has George Clooney in it. Good movie, except there's some weird parts. I mean, sorry about my room and all, but yes, there's some weird parts. What really got me was, well, when you have Damon Lindelof in a story, you get lost. I mean, good pun there, but you actually do get lost. I mean, really, because there's robots in this movie. I mean, audio animatronics, because Disney. Thank you, Walt Disney, for making animatronics right there, but cool that you got it. It's mostly just that, yeah, one of the main characters is a audio animatronic, and just randomly gives people Tomorrowland pins, because there's pins that can bring you to a great future. More like, yay, future, because it's not that great. Because you take all the smart people, I'm taking this from a trailer, take all the smart people, and you put them in another dimension. And what do you get? Tell me what you get. I don't know. You can't, because you get Ayn Rand. Or Ayn Rand, oh, however you say your name. You get this. At this shrugged. I mean, not saying Tomorrowland is a bad movie, because it has some good points. I mean, the whole world's going kind of weird and stuff, with how many things go on in the Middle East, the climate change, the blah blah blahs, the everything. Okay, just a lot of things. But when you got Ayn Rand in here, or at least my favorite part of the book, the third part, the part that has the fantastic 90-page I am John Galt speech, which I had to read, because I was like, oh, what's at the shrugged? People are talking about it. Probably pretty great. More like, I don't know, because it has some implications. I mean, when you have all your smart people going into their, I don't know, let's just say, happy little commune, or other dimension, or somewhere else, completely free of government and business, and the dumb people, because, I don't know, Ayn Rand thought that, I don't know, if you were a smart person, you could do whatever you wanted, and you don't really have to care about the other people, especially if you're rich. Because if you're rich, then you really don't have to care, because you're rich. And then if you have to care for people, I don't know. Now, I only read, like, Atlas Shrugged once or twice, and didn't really like it, if you can tell. But yeah, Tomorrowland got some hints of that, because the bad guy, played by the guy that isn't completely good, isn't completely bad. In this movie, there's not really a bad, I mean, there's a bad guy, but I mean, it's like, is anybody really bad? Because they all have good points, and you think they're all good because you're like, oh, this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's pretty good, and it gets weird, and it has some animatronic stuff and Race from Witch Mountain kind of stuff where it's like blasting and then road tripping across the United States thing. I mean, I'm sorry, Disney, but when you have people, especially like 16-year-olds or however old she is, in the movie, your second main character, that isn't George Clooney, because George Clooney is George Clooney. When you have them run across the United States, it's kind of weird. I mean, you're not supposed to do that. Like, people tell you to not run away from your home, and then you set up a whole thing about this rebel kid who is like, for some reason, they still have NASA in Cape Canaveral, and they're like, half this movie is like, or the first 10-15 minutes or so of, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2-hour movie, good 15-20 minutes, is about her coming to terms that the Cape Canaveral space platform that we shoot rockets out of, that pretty much closed in 2012, like, and it's getting torn down by your dad, like Tim McGraw or something, because Tim McGraw's in this movie for all of, like, 3 scenes, and he's like there, but I mean, she's like, let me just break into NASA, and like, first of all, yeah, that doesn't work. I mean, it does, but really, you want to break into Cape Canaveral to stop them tearing down a useless platform. What are you trying to do? It's 2015. I know this was probably filmed like 2014-ish, but kind of behind the times there. I mean, who has heard much of anything from NASA about, like, except if you're talking about like SpaceX and all that stuff? That's cool, but okay, NASA doesn't really get brought up after the first 20 minutes because wacky hijinks. I liked the movie. I did. So if it continually sounds like I didn't like the movie, I did. I'm just saying there's definitely some weird parts. I mean, there's objectivist philosophy in there somewhat. It's much more noticeable than some of his other films, probably. Brad Bird's films. I think there was some stuff in the, looking back in The Incredibles, there was some weird stuff in there. But it was really, really noticeable in this one, because it's like, your entire movie is based around Tomorrowland, which, first of all, I thought it was in the future the whole time. No, it wasn't. Even though it's called Tomorrowland, it's not in the future. It's one of those kind of fun things that Damon Lindelof likes to call a alternate dimension. Okay, more like alternate dimension of our dimension that you can get to via this very convoluted set of events. It's got some, like, very convoluted stuff in there. It's just like, okay, kind of cool. I mean, I really like, what was her name? Oh, dang it. The girl who was playing the audio animatronic that was like the good one. I mean, it was blah 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 blah. Fina. It was like Cassidy. Raffi Cassidy. Raffi Cassidy. I liked her performance. I mean, she hasn't been in much. I mean, come on. Outside of Hugh Laurie, maybe Tim McGraw, and definitely George Clooney, most of the cast really hasn't been in much. I mean, I checked out their stuff on Wikipedia. It's all like TV work, other stuff. They're all like in their 20s or something. I mean, they don't have much big screen work, but acting for what it has, it's good. It reminds me a lot of like the 1970s Race to Mitch Mountain films, which I love. I love those movies. I mean, they're ridiculous because, first of all, Disney making alien films. I mean, crazy. But they're great. I will not say otherwise. They're great. Nostalgically, they're kind of funky, but they're pretty great. But really, this movie got some Race from Witch Mountain vibes. Race to Witch Mountain. I haven't seen it in a while. So, the preposition between race and mountain, and if there's an escape in front of it, because, I mean, there was the Rock movie that everybody forgets. So yes, I love those movies. Except for maybe that Rock one. That was kind of a weird time. Because, heck, I just realized my hair is rather terrible, but it is literally, when I'm filming this, 7 a.m. I'm tired. I've been thinking about this all night. But yeah, what else? Blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, pretty much, pretty good movie. Really, really weird message. I mean, got the weird objectivist kind of stuff. But then there's the whole retrofuturistic thing. I mean, I'm just gonna keep rambling as long as it goes. Retrofuturism. I mean, retrofuturism is kind of cool. I mean, I love it. I love sci-fi. I love this movie. Ish. I mean, for what it is, it's no Matrix. One. I like The Matrix. Actually, all the movies are pretty good. But I definitely like retrofuturism, going back on the topic, because me and Tangents kind of like each other. But going back on the topic, I like retrofuturism. You know, Arthur C. Clarke, Buck Rogers in the 25th century. What else? Robert Heinlein, Foundation series. I mean, I know them. The iRobot kind of stuff. All good. Nice happy time where there was no ethnic problems, no societal issues, no economy issues. The computers were, I don't know, like 1940s vacuum tubes and goofy little things. Pretty cool. Well, except for the fact that it was written during like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where there was all those societal issues, racism, and terrible technology that we pretty much got past. So, cool. Retrofuturism has good and bad. Almost no black people. Almost no Jews. Almost no gay people. Actually on the last two, probably. 0 gay people. 0 Jews. Weird things for black people. I don't know. They don't really mention them. Retrofuturism is weird. Just gonna leave that out there. So, Walt Disney making a Tomorrowland movie. Kind of weird. I mean, Walt Disney liked Epcot, liked Tomorrowland, like all the things he made. And then you have to deal with him being Walt Disney. It's a small world after all. It's great. But Walt Disney had some weird ticks. So, cool. But really, cool, pretty great. Walt Disney's weird. It's a Small World is in this movie. Do I like It's a Small World? No. No, I don't. I have an abject fear of puppetry, animatronics, mannequins, dolls, and Muppets. It's a weird, weird thing. I know it's a weird fear. I blame Labyrinth and David Bowie, even though I love David Bowie. Bad Jareth the Goblin King made me have a fear of everything puppetry. So, having, It's a Small World in there with it's catchy do 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 do. It's a small world after all. Stuff is very awkward. I mean, my mom kind of laughed at me because she was like, "Ha ha ha! This is so funny that you're scared of puppets, and I didn't know there was going to be in here, so too bad you chose this, so haha, kind of funny." But really, puppets. I don't like me puppets. That was a terrible sentence. I don't like puppets. Don't really care. Puppets are bad. Going back onto any ramblings, because this is turning into a ramble instead of a rant. If it was a rant, I would be more mad. But I don't really get mad, so it's more of a ramble. And this is going to be a thing. Ending, kind of anticlimactic. Not going to say what's really in it, but anticlimactic compared to the journey. I mean, when you think that one of the creators, Lost or whatever, helped on this movie, was like one of the executive producer guys, some kind of producer director guy. Either way, the script is getting really weird. I loved me Lost. I loved Lost. Fantastic. Except for some of the last season half of that. Then it got extra weird and kind of like the mythology bits, but yeah, it's cool. But yeah, when you have the writer, or a writer of Lost, who is known to, mess with people, and have a rather iffy ending of that show, you got problems. I mean, good movie. Pretty good journey. I mean, I do like the little bits that they do. But yeah, got some problems. Going back all the way to the beginning, I liked George Clooney's character. I mean, George Walker, or whoever he was. I don't really know names, because they almost never said them. I know the general's name, Hugh Laurie, or was it Governor Nix? Because they say that a lot. Say it a lot. And Athena's name, the audio animatronic good person, say it a lot. Otherwise, it's pretty much just like you know what I got vibes of? Well, Atlas Shrugged, since the whole plot could be said as a idea of Atlas Shrugged, but I got some vibes of the Terminator. I mean, when your characters even though they're not from the future. They're just from an... Let me try to... I'll do my fingers, because my recording software is kind of iffy on the size of this. It's like the side of my computer. But yeah, when you're from alternate history universe plays, they never explain that. And this is normal Earth, and you go to normal Earth, and you go, ha 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 ha, here is Earth. It's pretty great. It also is a pig. But it's pretty great. Ha ha ha. And, bring some robots in there. Trying to find one person. John Connor? No. Other person that they almost never said the names of. Just say, save the future. Save the future. And save this terrible future. We're not going to explain this future. Or pretty much anything to get from point A to point B. And really the only reason you got kind of tangled up into this was because you were really curious. And you tried to sell your Tomorrowland pin. Or at least try to find information on a Tomorrowland pin. When, yeah, you're 16. Pretty great. But realize, first of all, you never sell anything that's plot relevant. Don't care. You don't sell. You don't be 16 and try to run off. You don't be 16 and think, yeah, this is a great idea. Let me sell this pin that can go all the way to the future, or wherever it is, because you think it's the future, but it's kind of weird and stuff. But you don't go and sell it to a junk collector. Just, no. No, girl. You do not. You do not do that. No. You don't do that. Don't do it. Terrible plan. I mean, could you do it? Yes. But if you're also dealing with either A, you're somehow hallucinating, B, you're somehow going to the future, C, you might be on drugs. For some reason, I don't know, because that's half of Tim McGraw's lines in the movie. Are you on drugs? I think you're on drugs. I think you're on drugs. Because you're seeing stuff, and I'm the dad, so I'm the totally dad figure that, you are totally on those drugs. Because you're screaming about a pen. You went to jail. You almost got deported by, like, Homeland Security because you tried to break into NASA or something, and I don't know, but I'm also Tim McGraw, so I sound like I'm your dad. That was a terrible, over the top accent, but still, you get the point. You don't do that. You don't do whatever main character girl did. You don't. I really should get editing software. But really, you don't. I mean, cool journey. Except that half of it's like in a car, driving to places, doing one thing. Oh, and my favorite part. They never explain anything in this movie. It's like, I have one Tomorrowland pin. I gave it to you. We're now driving from, like, no, they started in Florida. And then they drove. Then she took a bus to Austin, Texas, to offload that pin. Stuff went down. Then they went to, I don't know, New York. Because New York makes sense. Because George Clooney lives there. Good sequence. I mean, George Clooney as an actor can kind of get hammy. I mean, Batman and Robin. I mean, the Batman film he did. I don't even know if that's the same film I was referencing. But that Batman film, he can kind of overham it. It's kind of dialed back. It's kind of nice. And then they go to somewhere. Because they go to, like, another transporter thing. They don't explain anything, which, you know, show don't tell, it works. And then they try to, like, explain parts of what's going on via hip, young, teenage character, I mean, who supposedly knows anything by just being like, it's technology. Show me a little bit of it, and I'll pretty much know what to do because I am literally a character moving the plot along because I know stuff. I mean, that's how plots usually go because characters actually do need to know stuff. But when it's like, oh, gosh, you're teleporting people via satellite waves, and I only knew that because the wires that you're using are going through the walls to the satellite, and then you have this teleporter thingy, and you sit in it, does some weird, trippy, sort of Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory kind of stuff. Does some weird stuff for a moment or two, and then they get teleported to, like, Paris. Oh, and the great part is, they barely stay in Paris. It's just like a stopover, because automatically they find the next thing on the Eiffel Tower, which they teleported to via satellite waves, and this plot's a mess. Once you think about it, this plot, it's kind of a mess. Is it cool? Sure, it's pretty great. I mean, besides the weird glare that's going on with my glasses, it's pretty great. Stupid sun. Welcome, sun. It's pretty great, but yeah, weird parts. And then it's just like, then they shoot a rocket up, so then they can shoot down to get to Tomorrowland. I mean, there's one thing I do have to praise about this movie. It's the designs for everything. The designs for everything are cool. The ideas for using audio animatronics, who, even as a word, nobody has used outside of Disney for, like, decades. I mean, even now, when I was like, oh, they're using that word, I usually just call the stuff in Disneyland and Disney World animatronics. You don't get that extra audio bit. Don't use that extra word. Just cut it. You cut it. It's just an animatronic. But no, audio animatronic makes it sound fancier, makes it sound more like a futuristic robot because it's going all the way back to the World's Fair of 1964, because that's where the plot starts, and you see a little George Clooney actor. I mean, It's not George Clooney, but I can't think of the kid's name right now. Because he's only in, like, flashbacks and little memory things. The nice thing is they set George Clooney's character up to include both of those, so you can see where he began and where he ends up. So it's like, you kind of get this nice subplot of him liking the nice, good android animatronic thing, who also looks like a 10-year-old because she doesn't age because she's, of course, a robot. And then they have, like, a sort of liking each other because George Clooney and a 10-year-old looking robot is totally fine. Somehow. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, in movies, half the time, robots can get away with anything. Killing things is great when you don't involve blood or, I mean, going by cartoons, Samurai Jack was made off of robots blowing up after you kill it. Because violence on robots is different than violence on humans. Sure, they look like humans, but are they really human? Usually no, because why would they? And my computer is being its natural ornery self, being 4 or 5 years old. So if the video is a bit choppy, that's my computer. But really, it's kind of just like, you can get a lot away with a lot of violence in a, like, PG-13 film if almost every single bad guy in the movie is like a robot. Or, since it's Tomorrowland, they have energy weapons that can disintegrate people. Do they show that on screen? Yes, you see the people get hit by the thing, and then they disintegrate. Is that okay? Yeah, it's kind of iffy. I mean, it's PG. I mean, it's no Indiana Jones like 1, where that was PG and that had a lot of weird stuff in it. But I mean, it's PG. I wasn't expecting, like, that level of what the heck. Like, violence. It's a good movie. Good movie. But some weirdness like that. What else? Feels like Terminator meets On Rand. Good old at the Slug X Terminator. Then it has some Disney stuff. I mean, if I had to rate it or something, I'd have to say, I mean, it was a solid 7.5. That sounds kind of mean. I mean, if you look at the, but really, it's really not. I mean, yeah, it sounds mean, but if you look at the Metacritic score, the Rotten Tomatoes score, the critics' scores, I'm being rather nice to it. Because when you're trying to put in, and here's why. Yeah. When you're trying to put in all this, like, Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, objectivist philosophy kind of sounding stuff, and really weird little Terminator 2 kind of stuff where it's like every bad guy's a robot mostly, and Tomorrowland is the greatest thing ever because the little pins are great. Except that then it gets really, really bad at the second half because then you find out that the pins are kind of like an advert, like an advertisement for the 1960s World Fair where they were going to become public for like all of it. So it looks really, really clean, really nice, fantastic. It's all shiny, all happy. And then you get to Tomorrowland, and then it's like, people don't want to change the world because, holy cow, we tried to change it by giving us really depressing, the world's gonna end apocalypse. And then people were like, oh my god, the apocalypse sounds really great. Sounds great. I like it. I like the apocalypse. Why do I like it? Because it's like escapist fantasy. Escapist fantasy. It's nice. And then it keeps it going on. It's like, we're destroying the ice caps, we're killing all the Mickeys. Oh my god, you didn't hit the signs, we're all gonna die in like 50, 60 days, blah blah blah. Oh, and my favorite part? They're like, yeah, we're just gonna leave all the guys to die. Because if we let you guys in, which means all the rest of humanity, who's been kind of fed this idea that the apocalypse is gonna happen, and everybody's gonna die, and there's nothing we can do, and blah blah blah, is like, this is Hugh Laurie playing the fantastic character, the John Galt of the film. I like John Galt as a character, and then his motivations get kind of sketchy, like, book free of Atlas Shrugged. But really, it gets kind of depressing when you think, yeah, it's kind of depressing. They have this great scene that's like CGI, and it's like, oh yes, we're standing in a tachyon field, and we can see the past and the future, so now we will see the entire death of the world in like 30 to 50 days, because tachyons get kind of iffy around blah blah blah, and then did not think I would ever see a nuke in a Disney film. Well, I don't know, I don't think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a Disney film yet, because that was still Luke's film, and that was before I think they bought him out, blah blah blah. But still, it gets rather depressing around the second half, where like everybody loses hope, and then like 10 minutes later there's like, or even 5, there's like, now we have hope again, blah 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 blah. Big old cliche where it's like, oh boy, it's like the most depressing thing ever, and then it's gonna go turn right around in about 5 minutes of movie time, because there's no real transition between blah blah between scenes. It's just like, just go, just see the cool things of Tomorrowland and all the cool stuff. It's just like, go from here to here to here to here to here, and it's just like, the longer stay right around George Clooney house, then automatically go to Transporter Place, then to Paris, then like 5-10 minutes of that, and then it's like, and then it's like Tomorrowland, and it's pretty great, and it's not, and the movie's just a mess. Like, when you think of the plot, it's just messy. Like, it's your main character, your female main character that isn't a robot, is is just, I'm gonna break into stuff and try to stop a government required shutdown of NASA because she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say that NASA is the only thing in 2014, 15, whatever, is the only thing bringing us hope. Except they don't realize the technological advantages, the books we have, the music, the arts, the idea of YouTube, the whatever you can do, you do it. You don't just, oh, it's NASA, it's pretty cool, my whole school is like the most stereotypical, nobody is listening school, I'm the only, literally, she is the only one in the movie, in like in the only school scene that we see. She is the only one raising her hand, and she is like the only one not asleep or bored at her desk. And then this nice cliche of, hey, yeah, everything's depressing, or it's a dystopia, we're talking about dystopias, and we're talking about bad futures, and we're talking about the terrible things of science, and climate change, and all this stuff, and it's, you just think, wow, this is really, really depressing. This is, and everybody's like, man, this has to be an optimistic film. It's Tomorrowland. It's a Disney film. No, it's not that. It's not really optimistic. It's just like, cool. There's bad stuff happening. And the teachers, in their magical teacher fashion of movies, I love this. There's like, does anybody have a question? And then they finally answer a question. And she's like, what can we do to fix it? What can we do to fix? And there's like, oh yeah, let's just end class on that. Let's not answer the question. Let's not give an actual idea to them. That's just because it's school, and the stereotype of school is like, woohoo, it's school. Like, people hate school. People hate school. So the stereotype of schools being absolutely terrible, or teachers being absolutely terrible. There are terrible teachers. I've had a few. But really, when every teacher in your school is literally like, I'm not paying attention to you, and I'm spouting doom and gloom at you for hours on end, there is something wrong with that school. But really, it's like, are you trying with this movie? You have to be trying. You're getting money. I mean, if you look at like the projected money it made in like overseas and right in the US, well, which is kind of skewed because it just was like released, so. But really, what it's getting is not recouping its gonna like overall amount of money. It's not. I mean, it probably will because it still has a few weeks of release, and then there's always the home DVD market that people get because theater prices are expensive. Most of the time, yeah, they're really expensive. Just go every week or two, it gets up there after a while. Especially if you go with other people, which I normally do. And most people are just like, I could torrent it, or I could buy it in a bargain bin, after like a year to 2 years came out, and just like, oh yeah, this looks cool. Or, oh yeah, it's gonna be on Netflix, or Hulu, or Amazon, or YouTube, knowing how often parts of movies are on there, or something. It's gonna be somewhere. It's gonna be somewhere clause where it's just like, yeah, I could pay $7 to $10 and see if it's actually good. Read, like, reviews about this movie, read everything about this movie, and be, like, ideal. Be an idea. Think of this movie. But is it? Are you really thinking? No. You're just reading people's opinions. This is an opinion. You have an opinion. I have an opinion. We all have opinions about this movie. My opinion is different than yours. But really, it's just that idea that you can get stuff for free, music for free, stuff for free. It's like, I've read things like comments in like websites like trying to like explain some of these problems of this movie, and it's like, I could just wait until it comes out on wait and just barely pay anything to watch a movie. I could pay $5 to own the movie. I could pay $10 to rent the movie for like 7 days and watch it over and over, and it's frustrating when you want to go out and see a movie and people are just like, you're seeing that movie? Do you really want to see that movie? Is that a good movie? I mean, all movies have issues. I mean, I could come and say, like, we all know, like, the Star Wars movies aren't perfect. The prequel movies actually aren't that bad. They aren't. The Lord of the Rings movies are supposedly fantastic, except for the third one goes way too long because of the redundant ending montages that happen, ending scenes, blah blah blah. They're long. Movies are long. Movies have unnecessary parts. They're not all perfect. None of them are. The Shawshank Redemption, like IMDb's most liked movie, also imperfect at some points. It's very close to perfection, but nothing can be perfected. It's always going to be kind of crummy at some points. People have different ideas of what those points will be. But it's really just, I'm just saying, this movie has its issues, has its flaws. I just like it for its ideas. I mean, the plot is, as I said, 20 minutes ago, because I'm rambling at this point. It's Escape to Witch Mountain, Race to Witch Mountain, those series of films that Disney just randomly loves. I love them. They're great. You should probably watch the good old 1970s classics first, because those are the originals. But I mean, it got those vibes. It reminds me of like The Rocketeer, where it's like flying jetpacks and the world can change, and it's pretty optimistic at some points. You don't really fault, like most of the time, it's very optimistic. It's like, yeah, I made a machine that will predict that the whole world will end. But then you changed it because you believed that we could change it, and it's just what? You don't want to stumble at it, because like, it has its bad points. It's just like, the plot is iffy, the pacing is weird, sometimes the acting of definitely the robots. Some of the robots, like the main robot that pursues them, always has a weird, like, unnatural smile on his face. I know that's probably because he's a robot, and audio animatronic, that's never gonna catch on that much. Don't know why they use that. I mean, it's a nice callback to Disney, but yeah, it has issues. I give it a 7.5 out of 10, mostly for these issues, mostly because they could cut out some stuff and I'd be totally happy. And, you know, the weird tone of violence that was just like PG is this like weird desert zone of happy, sort of happy Disney films that make you kind of think, and then it's like other films that are like kind of getting into the violence, but it's not like super violent compared to PG-13 and R. And it's just like, and then that, like, take off that gives it like an 8. I give it off that extra half a point where it's just like, yes, Brad Bird, we know you're trying to like deal with the baby boomers' idea of this future that we have now. It's not as great as the future as I was promised in the 1960s World Fair, where there was like pretty much the greatest stuff ever created by 1960s minds, because it was just like, cool, 1960s are great. They're pretty fantastic. This was also the 1964 World's Fair or whatever. It was pretty great. It was before all the race riots and the blah blah blahs, and before most of the race riots, because you get the idea. It was before like most of the bad stuff that happened in like the late 60s. You know, Brad Bird, when you have two characters having like the same idea, because you have George Clooney, who's like, man, I'm really sad. This is not the future I wanted. This is pretty terrible. I want to change it, but I don't really know how. And then you got like our generation, the millennial generation. What generation is it? Like 90s to 2000s? I don't know, because I'm 21, and half the time the teenagers are just like, in movies are just like, I was born in 2000. I don't know. But really, it's like the turn of the century millennial thing, where it's like, I don't know what they were trying for. Because she was also like, I have to somehow stop the NASA entire program shutting down by having like an RC helicopter and flying it and like disabling stuff, and then pulling out like created like shorting systems out of my backpack to like provide like weird sort of terrorism or something. Like, what are you trying to do, Brad Bird? And then like their entire, I don't know, it isn't that Brad Bird wrote it, but it's just like, you directed it, you did some other stuff. I mean, you're usually good at your job of making good films, and it's just like, what did you do? It's just like the baby boomer generation complaining that this was cool and now it sucks. You're seeing you're seeing the trees and not the forest. That is pretty cool. Like, half the stuff we do with medicine now is pretty cool. Half the stuff we do with music now is okay. I mean, the mixes of music we got, the technology of streaming music online, the drinks we get, the whatever, the books, the whatever we want. I mean, there's stuff on the internet that you can get because it's on the internet. On public domain stuff, you can get a lot of stuff on the internet. I mean, you can get this on the internet, you can get everything we have, and they're complaining that the future you got kind of sucks, because that's what I get from Tomorrowland. It's kind of pessimistic about, we can't change the future, and then we find a person that can change the future, so we're not as pessimistic. And then it's like, oh, blah 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 blah. My favorite thing though, I don't know why, but every animatronic good person has like this weird British accent. I mean, British accents. I'm just gonna lay that out there as like a happy end to this, because it's, oh my god, running 55 minutes. But happy end. Okay. Pretty much the idea of, I don't know, good animatronic Athena is that, yeah, she looks like she's 10. She's always looked like she's 10, and she sounds like British. She's Britishy, and, well, it makes sense because her creator is Hugh Laurie and his, like, original, actual, true British accent, where he's like, "Oh, I am British," and I don't know, that was not even an attempted British. Yes, ha ha, cheerio. Now I just sound like it. No, but really, it makes sense, kind of. It's just like very annoying after a while. You're just like, well, especially when you think it makes sense for Hugh Laurie. I mean, Hugh Laurie could sound like Dr. House, or he could sound like a normal British accent. I wouldn't care. But when everyone else but him and like the good audio animatronics sound American, it's like kind of painful when you're like dealing with American accents and then just one main character that's just there all the time, and she sounds British. It makes sense because, like, the first half of the movie you think it's Hugh Laurie's daughter or something, but it's just so weird. Okay, that's about as much. I think I might call these, like, I don't know, some kind of ramble series, because going an hour about one movie, that's literally like 2 hours long. Kind of a lot when you just kind of go, no writing, nothing written, just off the top of my head, really, and like one Wikipedia page to figure out kind of what the characters' names were. Even if I cared, I don't really care. They never really get mentioned. Like, I don't think her name really, like, the main character girl's name never got mentioned. The android's name got mentioned a few times. You never see her brother. I mean, you never see the main character girl's brother or her dad after like the first 20 minutes. They're like not in the film. George Clooney, young George Clooney, nice. I mean, can't miss that. Hugh Laurie. I mean, other than that, there's not many people in this movie. It's all like extras and like one scene. And yeah, it's mostly just extras and like 5 or 6 main characters. And like a few minor roles. But there's not much. There's like no plot development, no characterization. Like, there's almost no growth. I mean, you could almost say there was at the end. I mean, they learned stuff. Stuff happened. It's just like the ending. You didn't have time to breathe. It's just like ending, and there was like happy point, and it was just boom, end, finish. You go. Bye-bye, people. You're done. It's pretty much that. But yeah, the movie was good. It's pretty average once I had to think about like all the parts that kind of bugged me. I mean, if it really bugged me, I would probably be talking even longer. But pretty much, yeah, this is pretty good. And I am signing off right about now.